Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. I want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And there is a PayPal link down there for anybody that wants to share some love. All is appreciated. Every little bit helps. And we're going to talk about LEXIS tonight, risk solutions. And a lot of people think about risk solutions as being kind of insurance related. And that's basically what it is, because what we're actually talking about is, what is it? And it's a product, or a LEXIS provides products for public records. It's called public records products. And what it is all this data, all the data elements that we enter into various different forums throughout our life. And they keep track of all that. And they use it for their internal purposes. And you can restrict some of that information for various different purposes, specifically considering commerce and things like that, and limit it to strictly legal presentations. So let's take a look at it. Let me see here. LexisNexis. Risk solutions. Okay. It's got a homepage, LexisNexis, and it says consumer disclosure. Okay, and that's what we're doing. Is we're gonna take care of the consumer disclosure of data elements for that consumer purposes. Fair Credit Reporting Act, things like that, so that they're not able to use that legal presentation in commercial forums against you quite so readily. I'm not saying that it's going to resolve everything, but these people are the main contributor for those public records products. So let's take a look. It says, who are we? LEXIS NEXIS Risk Solutions provides information solutions to business and government to help them identify and manage risk. Okay. And part of the issue here is the integrity of those records. That's what's at risk. And so if we're going to limit the data elements, and this is why I speak on this quite a bit, is it's a matter of correcting the records. We've been used to entering data elements into these records without knowing the full implications, and that is because we don't do our further research to find out exactly what's being said, the specific definitions and stuff. Our customers use our products to build a better picture of who they do business with, prevent and investigate fraud, investigate crimes, and keep communities safer. We do business with banks and financial institutions, insurance carriers, healthcare providers, and government agencies, law enforcement agencies, and nonprofits. For example, companies use our tools to verify identities in order to offer loans, quote insurance rates, and offer government-assisted benefits. The information we provide about consumers has been collected from public record and publicly available data sources. So if you don't put it into the public record to begin with, they don't have it. And there is no requirement that you enter data into a public record. Therefore, when you're dealing with all these different agencies applying for benefits and stuff, that's what's happening. It's going to go into a public record because they are a public agency. You have to learn what's happening here and learn how to protect your data before it goes in there. I'm not saying you can't enter data elements. I'm just saying that when you see what's presented before you, the data elements that you enter have to be true and correct. So if it asks you for a resident and you know by definition you are not a resident, you cannot put down on that form that you are a resident of Iowa. That's why those definitions are important. We also use proprietary data and information from third-party data sources in compiling our information products. The third-party data sources that they're using, proprietary data and information, is from you. Without your information, the public record is only a record of what's going on in the public. But because you enter your private data elements into it, now you are considered. It implies that you are part of that public and performing the functions of public office in a similar manner, just like monetary instruments and similar material. Consumers benefit when companies use our tools to make it harder for fraudsters to steal identities and get credit. Consumers benefit when companies use our tools to make it harder for fraudsters to steal identities and get credit, loans, or other benefits they aren't eligible for. Remember, I spoke here in a recent video about the credit default swap. When you're putting your data elements on these applications and registrations and everything, and you don't know what's going on, and you don't sign it properly, the other guy on the other side of the counter takes that document, and somebody else can still do something with it. If it falls into those hands of somebody that knows what to do with it, you essentially are signing over your rights to them, because that's what they're going to do. They're going to use that identity to get credit where they don't deserve it. Interests, things like that. If you would like to see the information that is maintained about you in our system, you may request a copy of your LEXIS Consumer Disclosure Report. Request a Consumer Disclosure Report right over here. So it's a clickable link, the red one on the right there. You can click on that and request a consumer report. For example, LexIS Risk Solutions is committed to the responsible use Okay, we're back. So let's try this again. LexIS Risk Solutions is committed to the responsible use and protection of sensitive consumer data, and we are devoted to information security. And as I've said many times, we're talking about a information clearinghouse. It's all the information that provides the value, and therefore it's a information clearinghouse is what we're talking about. And these are the information security managers. Okay. The Inspector General commissioned me as a special agent. Special, not general or particular. Means there's some kind of declaratory judgment and it is in force. Go ahead and drop me an email. Email is in the details section down below. And we've got Disciple of the Messiah, Peace and Grace, Brother Keith and family, Captain Action. We saw Bad Barney, No Bullet, Joseph R. Greetings, everybody. Make sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And we are rigorous in our efforts to comply with legal and regulatory guidelines, meeting and exceeding industry requirements. We recognize that the trust of our customers, business partners, and consumers is critical to our continued success. Request and receive a report online. You can request and receive reports from LexIS Risk Solutions online. After your request is submitted, you will receive a letter via U.S. mail with details explaining how to access your report online. If you prefer to mail in your request, you can choose to download a printable request form, PDF, and send it to us via U.S. mail. If it is more convenient to call us, feel free to give us a call, and we will submit your request for you. Exercise your state privacy rights. Certain states grant their residents. So understand, grant, that's a term of trust law, as in a grant or grantee. As it relates to their residents, which are federal, state, or municipal officers or agents whose resident presence is deemed necessary by the board, which is for commercial purposes, and generally at your state level, it's going to be for income tax purposes. Oops. Certain states grant their residents options with respect to their personal information. If you are a resident of California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Iowa, Minnesota, Montana, Nevada, Nebraska, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Oregon, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, or Virginia, in some circumstances, you may be able to request to opt out of your personal information being sold to third parties. So, when people are telling you that your information is being sold to third parties, understand again, it's an information clearinghouse, like I said, because it's a commercial aspect of the data elements, whether it be numbers or letters, and they are selling that information. It's the data elements that you give them that have value. Exercise your state privacy rights. Do not sell or share my personal information. Limit the use of my sensitive personal information, California. Request a FACT Act disclosure report. The FACT Act entitles you to obtain one free copy of your applicable consumer report from certain consumer reporting agencies during a 12-month period. Your FCRA rights, federal and state. Read about your rights under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So if they're using it to obtain credit, loans, or benefits, and it's always going to be in accordance to the credence of the information provided. Request and receive a description of our dispute process online. You can request a description of process letter from LexIS with the status of your disputes in our system. You will receive the description of process letter via U.S. mail. View your description of process letter or procedure letter for an explanation of our general dispute process. If you received an adverse action letter, an adverse action letter is sent when a carrier has not given a consumer the best rate for insurance or taken any of the following actions: denied you insurance, increased your rates, limited your coverage, or canceled your policy. If your insurance company has sent you an adverse action letter, please contact the LexIS Consumer Center at 1-800-456-6666 6004 to request the information related to the adverse action. Please be ready to provide your first and last name, social security number, driver's license number, and state in which it was issued, date of birth, current home address, and phone number. If your insurance carrier provided a reference number on the adverse action letter you received, please be ready to provide it as well. This will help expedite the process. How can we help? Contact us through our LEXIS Risk Help page for general questions, special assistance, accessibility questions. So again, we're talking about special assistance, which is not particular or general. So when it comes to things like, please be ready to provide your first and last name. I don't have one. I can give you the information relative to that first and last name that is in that record, and that is Keith Little. Social security number, I would have to have you do that through the SSA form SSA 89. And that is, we will have Social Security authorize the use of the Social Security number this one time for this purpose for LexIS specifically, and they will do the authorization. Driver's license number? Don't have one. What about your state ID number? Sorry, don't have one. If the Social Security number is there, it's what's used to get that stuff. So you can look again at the record that was there in the past, and you will see that the driver's license was what they say, it was suspended. And then it was never renewed within the time period and can't be renewed for impossibilities for requirements of that driver's licensing now. Same factor for the ID. What is the requirement that says I must have a state ID? There is none. Date of birth, I can give them that. And again, in relations to the date of birth, I've got a birth certificate right here that will give the date of birth. And again, it's got that first and last name. See, I'm the one holding that instrumentality, that monetary instrument or similar material that can be monetized. Current home address and phone number. They cannot require there we go. They cannot require a phone number. That's got to be optional. And current home address, if you want that mailing, you got to give it to them. But make sure you understand the capacity of that address that you're giving it to them. And I would give them and this is why I would call them on the phone to make sure that this is clear so that they understand that I'm not a resident. Okay, this is my rebuttal. See, the information I've already put in there is in error. And not only am I limiting the disclosure, but I'm trying to get the process of correcting the records, and this is, I'm going to assume, be part of it. Okay, and so when it comes to the limitation of the disclosure, LexIS individual request for information suppression policy. And it says non-FCRA opt-out policy, FCRA Fair Credit Reporting Act. So it's not dealing with the Fair Credit Reporting Act. It says non-FCRA opt-out policy. So what's it doing? Again, like I said, it's limiting the data elements which come before the commerce, before the consumerism. And it goes actually to the credence, the merits. Again, the integrity of the record. Is it true? Individuals may request to opt out of having personal information about themselves made available through certain LEXIS products and services in accordance with legal requirements. In accordance with legal requirements. So let's talk about the requirement for a state ID. Let's talk about the fact that the Social Security number is actually voluntary. Let's talk about the fact that enumeration at birth has minimum birth registration standards that are not met unless that birth is registered in the United States. Certification is false. It does not meet the standards yet. Or if permitted by LEXIS policy. So what is LEXIS policy? LEXIS policy is in fact contract terms and conditions on how it will conduct its business. So if in its policy of conducting business, its contract terms and conditions don't require me as a contract participant, then they shouldn't have my name in their mouth. See, that's what that record is. Commodities Exchange Act. Persons reasonably believed to be eligible contract participants. And how do they believe that? Because they're using a national address format in the form of first and last name as a registered agent known as a resident, giving his residential address as if though he's the trustee in an expressed trust. Such requests are referred to as information suppressions. LEXIS permits individuals to have certain personal information about themselves suppressed from LEXIS public records. Over the internet. So the general public would be somebody like myself on YouTube wanting to look up IP addresses and get personal information. You can look up my personal information all you want, guys. Public and elected officials, including law enforcement officers and private individuals who are facing a substantial risk of physical harm or who are victims of identity theft, may request to have personal information about themselves suppressed from LEXIS products and services available to subscribers of our restricted public records products. So who can subscribe to their public records products? These products are available to commercial and government entities that meet LEXIS credentialing requirements and are used to detect and prevent fraud, enforce transactions, perform due diligence, and other critical business and government functions. Performance of the functions of public office. LEXIS does not suppress personal information from databases used by law enforcement customers. Law enforcement customers, not associates, co-workers, and such. Comprehend the language, folks. LEXIS also does not suppress personal information from the following products and services. Product containing information regulated by the Fair Credit Reporting Act. except as required by law. Third-party data available through real-time gateways, news, and legal documents. What are real-time gateways? Are those the electronic communications? Isn't that real time? I mean, isn't this live and you're getting it real time? It's a gateway of data elements. You're getting data elements through this portal. Understand the language, folks. This policy only applies to personal information that is available through LexisNexis owned databases. Please note that information suppressions applied to the LexisNexis databases will not prevent other companies or public records agencies from collecting or disseminating personal information. They have to collect it first before they can disseminate it. It's your fault. Learn to stand up and accept the responsibility that you entered the data elements, even though you didn't know what it meant at the time. I too was a bitch-ass slave. I too was a fucking fool. But come on, folks, if you're an adult, there's certainly a time to start standing up and acting like one. Documentation required for suppression reports. Requests for suppression from restricted public records products must include documents or documentation substantiating the risk of physical harm or the individual's status as an identity theft victim. Okay, let's talk about this identity theft victim. The fact that I decided to not use that identification in the way it was being used before may not be an absolute identity theft, but it is a gateway, a real-time gateway for others to misuse it, as the record reflects. Because again, the identity posed is that of a public officer or agent at the federal, state, or municipal level, again, according to the application or implications of stubbornly and ignorantly saying that we're, quote, residents of the state of Iowa, of the state of Florida, of the state of Arizona, blah, blah, blah. United States citizens, dual citizen on the 14th Amendment. You're not the person. LexisNexis reserves the right to determine in its sole reasonable discretion what documentation meets this criteria. If your suppression request is not approved, we will promptly inform you about that determination. If you are a victim of identity theft, submit a copy of a police report documenting the identity theft or documentation that verifies the identity theft claim, such as a letter from your credit card company and an identity theft affidavit. Or if you are a law enforcement officer or public official, submit a letter from your supervisor stating that your position exposes you to a threat of death or serious bodily harm. That your position as a resident exposes you to a threat of death or serious bodily harm by implying that you are subject to the laws that which you are not, because you're not in contract with them. In fact, you are not one of their customers. In fact, if you are at risk of physical harm but do not work in law enforcement, submit a copy of a court protective order, a copy of a police report, or a similar documentation such as a letter from a shelter administrator or a healthcare professional. All suppression requests may be submitted using the online form at the link below. If the supporting documentation cannot be uploaded, individuals may submit their requests online, but also must email or mail the supporting documents to LexIS individual request for information suppression, P.O. Box 933, Dayton, Ohio 45400 or 401, and email to privacy.information.mgr@lexisnexis.com. Please note, information submitted to LexisNexis as part of a suppression report or request as set forth in this policy will be used solely in fulfilling the request, and information suppression requests will be processed within a reasonable time or as required by law. If after implementation of an information suppression request, information about you is inadvertently included in a manner inconsistent with the above policy, please contact us promptly by email at privacy.information at the same email above. So the basic premise I'm putting forth here, folks, is that you've been putting out data elements all your life. And it's been going out into the public, that public record. And one of those services that LexisNexis provides is a public record system. It's not the only one, but it's the major one. And it's the one that the courts use. So again, that's why they mention the law enforcement. And again, remember, I pointed out law enforcement's customers. It's a private corporation. They're in for profit. Just like the prisons are for-profit prisons, so is your standing army. And funny how the government's paying them to quarter them, violation of the Third Amendment, if it were somebody else's home. That's why everything's this government provision stuff. See, the government's not supposed to be providing. The government's supposed to be protecting. So think about this stuff, folks. If they're using that data, the data elements against you, it's your own fault. And again, I was a bitch-ass slave. I, too, was a fucking fool. And I'm having a hell of a time trying to figure out how to get all the records corrected. Having a hard time getting people to understand. Because everybody's just a Hitler's willing executioner, just doing their job, and they really don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'll have to talk to the boss. I talked to the boss doesn't know. Minimum birth registration standards. Certification is false because the information is false. The record can't be true. If it's a public trust and everybody's considered a resident, a trustee under a grant from the state, where the fuck are the beneficiaries? There aren't any, because the only true beneficiary is a beneficiary of knowledge. Because that's the only true benefit. Everybody else thinks all these materialistic things, the possessions and everything, that those are benefits. No. The knowledge is the benefit. Because you can't rightly use a thing unless you have a knowledge of it. So think about this stuff, folks. Hope you enjoyed this stream tonight. Make sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, there is a PayPal link down below for anybody who wants to share some love. All is appreciated. What happened to it? Make sure you send a few bucks here or there if you like what's going on, and come back and see us again next time. I'm going to keep doing these videos. I think tomorrow I'm going to do one on the driver's license and the exceptions. And one of those exceptions is the non-resident. And yet everybody wants to claim resident, and therefore that's why they're supposedly required to get that ID or the driver's license. So hopefully we'll see everybody next time on that one. And you guys know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you and have a good night.